whole of the law. Thou hast no right but to do thy will. To that and no other shall say nay. Every man and every woman is a star. There is no God but man. The rights of man, Master Therian, Trader Perturabo, Alistair Crowley, the Master, Alistair Crowley. Man has the right to live by his own law, to live in the way that he wills to work as he will, play as he will, to rest as he will, to die when and how he will. Man has the right to eat what he will, to drink what he will, to dwell where he will, to move as he will on the face of the earth. Man has the right to think what he will, to speak what he will, to write what he will, to draw, paint, carve, etch and mold, build as he will, to dress as he will. Man has the right to love as he will, take your fill and will of love as you will, when, where, and with whom you will. Man has the right to kill those who thwart these rights. The slave shall serve. Love is the law. Love under the law of the strong. This is our law and the joy of the world. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Thou hast no right but to do thy will. Do that and no other shall say nay. Every man and every woman is a star. There is no God but man. The rights of man, Master Theron, Freda Perturabo, Alistair Crowley, the Master, Alistair Crowley. Man has the right to live by his own law, to live in the way that he wills to do, to work as he will, to play as he will, to rest as he will, to die when and how he will. Man has the right to eat what he will, to drink what he will, to dwell where he will, to move as he will on the face of the earth. Man has the right to think what he will, to speak what he will, to write what he will, to draw, paint, carve, etch and mold, build as he will, dress as he will. Man has the right to love as he will, take your fill and will of love as you will, where and with whom you will. Man has the right to kill those who would thwart these rights. The slave shall serve. Love is the law. Love under the law of the strong. This is our law and the joy of the world. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Thou hast no right but to do thy will. Do that and no other shall say nay. Every man and every woman is a star. There is no God but man. The rights of man, Master Therian, Freda Perturabo, Alistair Crowley, the Master, Alistair Crowley. Carthage, though a commercial republic, was the aggressor. In the very war that ended in her destruction, Hannibal had carried her arms into the heart of Italy, to the gates of Rome before Scipio returned, gave him an overthrow in the territories of Carthage, made a conquest of the Commonwealth. Venice in later times figured more than once in wars of ambition, till becoming an object to the other Italian states. Pope Julius too found means to accomplish that formidable lead, which gave a deadly blow to the power and pride of this haughty republic. The provinces of Holland, till they were overwhelmed in debts and taxes, took a leading and conspicuous part in the wars of Europe. They had furious contests with England for the dominion of the sea, and were among the most persevering and most implacable of the opponents of Louis XIV. In the government of Britain, the representatives of the people compose one branch of the national legislature. Commerce has been for ages the predominant pursuit of that country. Few nations, nevertheless, have been more frequently engaged in war. And the wars in which that kingdom has been engaged have, in numerous instances, proceeded from the people. There have been, if I may so express it, almost as many popular as royal wars. The cries of the nation and the importunities of their representatives, upon various occasions, dragged their monarchs into war, or continued them in it, contrary to their inclinations, and sometimes contrary to the real interest of the state. In that memorable struggle for superiority between the rival houses of Austria and Bavaria, which so long kept Europe in a flame, it is well known that the antipathies of the English against the French, seconding the ambition, or rather the avarice, of a favorite leader, then protracted the war beyond the limits marked out by sound policy, and for considerable time in opposition to the views of the court. The wars of these two last-mentioned nations have, in a great measure, grown out of commercial considerations, the desire of supplanting and the fear of being supplanted, either in particular branches of traffic or in the general advantages of trade and navigation. From this summary of what has taken place in other countries, whose situations have borne the nearest resemblance to our own, what reason can we have to confide in those reveries, which would seduce us into an expectation of peace, cordiality between the members of the present Confederacy in a state of separation? Have we not already seen enough of the fallacy and extravagance of those idle theories which have amused us with promises of an exemption from the imperfections, weaknesses, and evils incident to society in every shape? Is it not time to awake from the deceitful dream of a golden age and to adopt as a practical maxim for the direction of our political conduct that we, as well as the other inhabitants of the globe, are yet remote from the happy empire of perfect wisdom, the perfect virtue, At the point of extreme depression to which our national dignity and credit have sunk, let the inconveniences felt everywhere from a lax and ill administration of government, let the revolt of a part of the state of North Carolina, the late menacing disturbances in Pennsylvania, and the actual insurrections and rebellions in Massachusetts declared. I need to be free of those telling me what to do in order to attain my fulfillment. If I suppress my sensual impulses and urges, I may do harm to my natural development. I am a mature person. I can read whatever I wish, watch whatever kind of TV program or movies I wish. It doesn't affect me at all if I always say no to others in regard to sex or drugs or alcohol. I will never be accepted by others. I will never have any friends. I don't need confession. I haven't any graces. And besides, if I stay away more, there will be less danger of routine confessions. My prayers don't seem to be answered. Seem to be answered. So what is the use of praying? My conscience is the only guide I need. As long as I am at peace with my conscience, I need not worry. Even if some of my actions and decisions are away with the teachings of the church at and so on without end is the cleverness of the evil one in exploiting our weaknesses, our likes and dislikes. I need to be free of those telling me what to do in order to attain my fulfillment. If I suppress my sensual impulses and urges, I may do harm to my natural development. I am a mature person. I can read whatever I wish, watch whatever kind of TV program or movies I wish. It doesn't affect me at all if I always say no to others in regard to sex or drugs or alcohol. I will never be accepted by others. I will never have any friends. I don't need confession. I haven't any graces. And besides, if I stay away more, there will be less danger of routine confessions. My prayers don't seem to be answered. Seem to be answered. So what is the use of praying? My conscience is the only guide I need. As long as I am at peace with my conscience, I need not worry. Even if some of my actions and decisions are not outrageous. When this time said the chicks should I shut and come, breathe softly as a well till I rebound to the world of the profound. Hard to finally free from sense of service and empty. Watch every thought that springs and hands hour after all our vigilance. Content to keep turned inward, miss no atom of analysis. Sick silent thoughts securely pinned, still every whisper of the wind. So like a flame straight and unstirred, burn up by being in one word. Next till that ecstasy prolonged, thy meditations deep and strong. Slaying even God should he distract thy attention from the chosen act. Blast all these things in one our power. Time let the midnight blossom flower. The one that says, yet even in this, my son, thou shalt not do amiss. So like a flame straight and start burn up thy being in one word. Next to that ecstasy, oh, that meditates nice, deep and strong. Slaving God should he distract thy attention from the chosen act. That's all these things in water power. Time at the midnight blossom flower. The one who says yet in this, my son, thou shalt not do amiss. The utility of a confederacy, as well to suppress faction and to guard the internal tranquility of states, as to increase their external force and security, is in reality not a new idea. It has been practiced upon in different countries and ages, and has received the sanction of the most approved writers on the subject of politics. The opponents of the plan proposed have, with great assiduity, cited and circulated observations of Montesquieu on the necessity of a contracted territory for a republican government, but they seem not to have been apprised of the sentiments of that great man expressed in another part of his work, nor to have adverted to the consequences of the principle to which they subscribe with such ready acquiescence. When Montesquieu recommends a small extent for republics, the standards he had in view were of dimensions far short of the limits of almost every one of these states. Virginia, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, New York, North Carolina, nor Georgia can by any means be compared with the models from which he reasoned and to which the terms of his description apply. If we therefore take his ideas on this point as the criterion of truth, we shall be driven to the alternate either of taking refuge at once in the arms of monarchy, or of splitting ourselves into an infinity of little jealous, clashing, tumultuous commonwealths, the wretched nurseries of unceasing discord, and the miserable objects of universal pity or contempt. Some of the writers who have come forward on the other side of the question seem to have been aware of the dilemma, and have even been bold enough to hint at the division of the larger states as a desirable thing. Such an infatuated policy, such a desperate expedient might, by the multiplication of petty offices, answer the views of men who possess not qualifications to extend their influence beyond the narrow circles of personal intrigue. But it could never promote the greatness or happiness of the people of America.
In the wide field of Western territory, therefore, we perceive an ample theater for hostile pretensions, without any umpire or common judge to interpose between the contending parties. To reason from the past to the future, we shall have good ground to apprehend that the sword would sometimes be appealed to as the arbiter of their differences. The circumstances of the dispute between Connecticut and Pennsylvania, respecting the land at Wyoming, admonish us not to be sanguine in expecting an easy accommodation of such differences. The Articles of Confederation oblige the parties to submit the matter to the decision of a federal court. The submission was made, and the court decided in favor of Pennsylvania. But Connecticut gave strong indications of dissatisfaction with that determination, nor did she appear to be entirely resigned to it, till, by negotiation and management, something like an equivalent was found for the loss she supposed herself to have sustained. Nothing here said is intended to convey the slightest censure on the conduct of that state. She no doubt sincerely believed herself to have been injured by the decision. And states, like individuals, acquiesce with great reluctance in determinations to their disadvantage. Those who had an opportunity of seeing the inside of the transactions which attended the progress of the controversy between this state and the District of Vermont can vouch the opposition we experienced, as well from states not interested as from those which were interested in the claim, and can attest the danger to which the peace of the Confederacy might have been exposed had this state attempted to assert its rights by force. Two motives preponderated in that opposition. One, a jealousy entertained of our future power, and the other, the interest of certain individuals of influence in the neighboring states who had obtained grants of lands under the actual government of that district, even the states which brought forward claims in contradiction to ours seemed more solicitous to dismember this state than to establish their own pretensions. These were New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Connecticut, New Jersey, and Rhode Island, upon all occasions discovered a warm zeal for the independence of Vermont, and Maryland, till alarmed by the appearance of a connection between Canada and that state, entered deeply into the same views. These, being small states, saw with an unfriendly eye the perspective of our growing greatness. In a review of these transactions, we may trace some of the causes which would be likely to embroil the states with each other, if it should be their unpropitious destiny to become disunited. The competitions of commerce would be another fruitful source of contention. The states less favorably circumstanced would be desirous of escaping from the disadvantages of local situation and of sharing in the advantages of their more fortunate neighbors. Each state or separate confederacy would pursue a system of commercial policy peculiar to itself. This would occasion distinctions, preferences, and exclusions which would beget discontent. The habits of intercourse on the basis of equal privileges to which we have been accustomed since the earliest settlement of the country would give a keener edge to those causes of discontent than they would naturally have independent of this circumstance. We should be ready to denominate injuries for those things which were in reality the justifiable acts of independence. Of our age is consulting a distinct interest, the spirit of enterprise which characterizes the commercial part of America has left no occasion of displaying itself unimproved. It is not at all probable that this unbridled spirit would pay much respect to those regulations of trade by which particular states might endeavor to secure exclusive benefits to their own citizens. The infractions of these regulations on one side, the efforts to prevent and repel them on the other, would naturally lead to outrages, and these to reprisals and wars.
Confederacy, as well to suppress faction and to guard the internal tranquility of states, as to increase their external force and security, is in reality not a new idea. It has been practiced upon in different countries and ages, and has received the sanction of the most prove right. On the subject of politics, the opponents of the plan proposed have, with great assiduity, cited and circulated the observations of Montesquieu on the necessity of a contracted territory for a Republican government. But they seem not to have been apprised of the sentiments of that great man expressed in another part of his work, nor to have adverted to the consequences of the principle to which they subscribe with such ready acquiescence. Montesquieu recommends a small extent for republics. The standards he had in view were of dimensions far short of the limits of almost every one of these states. Not Virginia, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, New York, North Carolina, nor Georgia can by any means be compared with the models from which he reasoned and to which the terms of his description apply. If we therefore take his ideas on this point as the criterion of truth, we shall be driven to the alternative, either of taking refuge at once in the arms of monarchy, or splitting ourselves into an infinity of little jealous, clashing, tumultuous commonwealths, the wretched nurseries of unceasing discord, and the miserable objects of universal pity or contempt. Some of the writers who have come forward on the other side of the question seem to have been aware of the dilemma, and have even been bold enough to hint at the division of the larger states as a desirable thing. Such an infatuated policy, such a desperate expedient might, by the multiplication of petty offices, answer the views of men who possess not qualifications to extend their influence beyond the narrow circles of personal intrigue. But it could never promote the greatness or happiness of the people of America.
Federalist No. 7. The same subject continued, concerning dangers from dissensions between the states. For the Independent Journal, Alexander Hamilton. To the people of the state of New York, it is sometimes asked, with an air of seeming triumph, what inducements could the states have, if disunited, to make war upon each other? It would be a full answer to this question to say, precisely the same inducements which have at different times deluged in blood all the nations in the world. But unfortunately for us, the question admits of a more particular answer. There are causes of differences within our immediate contemplation, of the tendency of which, even under the restraints of a federal constitution, we have had sufficient experience to enable us to form a judgment of what might be expected if those restraints were removed. Territorial disputes have at all times been found one of the most fertile sources of hostility among nations. Perhaps the greatest proportion of wars that have desolated the earth have sprung from this origin. This cause would exist among us in full force. We have a vast tract of unsettled territory within the boundaries of the United States. There still are discordant and undecided claims between several of them, and the dissolution of the Union would lay a foundation for similar claims between them all. It is well known that they have heretofore had serious and animated discussion concerning the rights to the lands which were ungranted at the time of the Revolution, and which usually went under the name of Crown lands. The states within the limits of whose colonial governments they were comprised have claimed them as their property. The others have contended that the rights of the Crown in this article devolved upon the Union. especially as to all that part of the Western Territory which, either by actual possession or through the submission of the Indian proprietors, was subjected to the jurisdiction of the King of Great Britain, till it was relinquished in the Treaty of Peace. This, it has been said, was at all events an acquisition to the Confederacy by compact with a foreign power. It has been the prudent policy of Congress to appease this controversy by prevailing upon the states to make cessions to the United States for the benefit of the whole. This has been so far accomplished as, under a continuation of the Union, to afford a decided prospect of an amicable termination of the dispute. A dismemberment of the Confederacy, however, would revive this dispute and would create others on the same subject. At present, a large part of the vacant Western Territory is, by cession at least, if not by any anterior right, the common property of the Union. If that were at an end, the states which made the cession on a principle of federal compromise would be apt when the motive of the grant had ceased to reclaim the lands as a reversion. The other states would no doubt insist on a proportion, by right of representation. Their argument would be that a grant once made could not be revoked, and that the justice of participating in territory acquired or secured by the joint efforts of the Confederacy remained undiminished. If, contrary to probability, it should be admitted by all the states that each had a right to a share of this common stock, there would still be a difficulty to be surmounted as to a proper rule of apportionment. Different principles would be set up by different states for this purpose, and as they would affect the opposite interests of the parties, they might not easily be susceptible of a pacific adjustment. To the people of the state of New York, it is not a new observation that the people of any country, if like the Americans intelligent and well-informed, and steadily persevere for many years in an erroneous opinion respecting their interest, the consideration naturally tends to create great respect for the high opinion which the people of America have so long and uniformly entertained of the importance of their continuing firmly united under one federal government vested with sufficient powers for all general and national purposes. The more attentively I consider and investigate the reasons which appear to have given birth to this opinion, the more I become convinced that they are cogent and conclusive. Among the many objects to which a wise and free people find it necessary to direct their attention, that of providing for their safety seems to be the first. The safety of the people doubtless has relation to a great variety of circumstances and considerations, and consequently affords great latitude to those who wish to define it precisely and comprehensively. At present, I mean only to consider it as it respects security for the preservation of peace and tranquility, as well as against dangers from foreign odds and influence, as from dangers of the like kind arising from domestic causes. As the former of these comes first in order, it is proper and should be the first discussed. Let us therefore proceed to examine whether the people are not right in their opinion that a cordial union under an efficient national government affords them the best security that can be devised against hostilities from abroad. The number of wars which have happened or will happen in the world will always be found to be in proportion to the number and weight of the causes, whether real or pretended, which provoke or invite them. If this remark be just, it becomes useful to inquire whether so many just causes of war are likely to be given by United America as by the Sunny America. For if it should turn out that United America will probably give the fewest, then it will follow that in its respect the Union tends most to preserve the people in a state of peace with other nations.
Because when once an efficient national government is established, the best men in the country will not only consent to serve, but also will generally be appointed to manage it. For although town or country or other contracted influence may place men in state assemblies or senates or courts of justice or executive departments, yet more general and extensive reputation for talents and other qualifications will be necessary to recommend men to offices under the national government, especially as it will have the widest field for choice and never experience the want of proper persons, which is not uncommon with some of the states. Hence, it will result that the administration, the political councils, and the judicial decisions of the national government will be more wise, systematical, and judicious than those of individual states, and consequently more satisfactory with respect to other nations, as well as more safe with respect to us. Because under the national government, treaties and articles of treaties, as well as the laws of nations, will always be expounded in one sense and executed in the same manner. Whereas adjudications on the same points and questions in 13 states or in 3 or 4 confederacies will not always accord or be consistent, and that, as well from the variety of independent courts and judges appointed by different and independent governments, as from the different local laws and interests which may affect and influence them. The wisdom of the convention in committing such questions to the jurisdiction judgment of courts appointed by and responsible only to one national government cannot be too much commended, because the prospect of present loss or advantage may often tempt the governing party in 1 or 2 states to swerve from good faith and justice. But those temptations not reaching the other states, and consequently having little or no influence on the national government, temptation will be fruitless and good faith and justice be preserved. He's a treaty of peace within its great weight to this reasoning, because even if the governing party in a state should be disposed to resist such temptations, yet as such temptations may and commonly do result from circumstances peculiar to the state, and may affect a great number of the inhabitants, the governing party may not always be able, if willing, to prevent the injustice meditated, or to punish the aggressors. But the national government, not being affected by those local circumstances, will neither be induced to commit the wrong themselves, nor want power or inclination for good. most foment the peace and liberty of the states as a barrier against domestic faction and insurrection. It is impossible to read the history of the petty republics of Greece and Italy without feeling sensations of horror and disgust at the distractions with which they were continually agitated, and at the rapid succession of revolutions by which they were kept in a state of perpetual vibration between the extremes of tyranny and anarchy. If they exhibit occasional calms, these only serve as short-lived contrast to the furious storms that are to succeed. If now and then intervals of felicity open to view, we behold them with a mixture of regret arising from the reflection that the pleasing scenes before us are soon to be overwhelmed by the tempestuous waves of sedition and party rage. If momentary rays of glory break forth from the gloom while they dazzle us with a transient and fleeting brilliancy, they at the same time admonish us to lament that the vices of government should pervert the direction and tarnish the luster of those bright talents and exalted endowments for which the favored soils that produced them have been so justly celebrated. From the disorders that disfigure the annals of those republics, the advocates of despotism have drawn arguments, not only against the forms of republican government, but against the very principles of civil liberty. They have decried all free government as inconsistent with the order of society, and have indulged themselves in malicious exultation over its friends and partisans happily for mankind. Stupendous fabrics reared on the basis of liberty, which have flourished for ages, have, in a few glorious instances, refuted their gloomy sophisms, and, I trust, America will be the broad and solid foundation of other edifices, not less magnificent, which will be equally permanent monuments of their errors. But it is not to be denied that the portraits they have sketched of republican government were too just copies of the originals from which they were taken. If it had been found impractical to have devised models of a more perfect structure, the enlightened friends to liberty would have been obliged to abandon the cause of its species of government as indefensible. The science of politics, however, like most other sciences, has received great improvement. The efficacy of various principles is now well understood, which were either not known at all or imperfectly known to the ancients. The regular distribution of power into distinct departments, the introduction of legislative balances and checks, the institution of courts composed of judges holding their offices during good behavior, the representation of the people in the legislature by deputies of their own election. These are wholly new discoveries, or made their principal progress towards perfection in modern times. They are means, and powerful means, by which the excellences of republican government may be retained and its imperfections lessened or avoided. To this catalog of circumstances that tend to the amelioration of popular systems of civil government, I shall venture, however novel it may appear to some, to add one more on a principle which has been made the foundation of an objection to the new Constitution. I mean, the enlargement of the orbit within which such systems are to revolve, either in respect to the dimensions of a single state or to the consolidation of several smaller states into one great confederacy. The latter is that which immediately concerns the object under consideration. It will, however, be of use to examine the principle in its application to a single state, which shall be attended to in another place.
The opportunities which some states would have of rendering others tributary to them by commercial regulations would be impatiently submitted to by the tributary states. The relative situation of New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey would afford an example of this kind. New York, from the necessities of revenue, must lay duties on our importations. A great part of these duties must be paid by the inhabitants of the two other states in the capacity of consumers of what we import. New York would neither be willing nor able to forego this advantage. Our citizens would not consent that a duty paid by them should be remitted in favor of the citizens of our neighbors. Nor would it be practicable if there were not this impediment in the way to distinguish the customers in our own markets. Would Connecticut and New Jersey long submit to be taxed by New York for our exclusive benefit? Should we be long permitted to remain in the quiet and undisturbed enjoyment of a metropolis, from the possession of which we derived an advantage so odious to our neighbors, and, in their opinions, so oppressive? Should we be able to preserve it against the incumbent weight of Connecticut on the one side, and the cooperating pressure of New Jersey on the other? These are questions that temerity alone will answer in the affirmative. The public debt of the Union would be a further cause of collision between the separate states or confederacies. The apportionment in the first instance and the progressive extinguishment afterward would be alike productive of ill humor and animosity. How would it be possible to agree upon a rule of apportionment satisfactory to all? There is scarcely any that can be proposed which is entirely free from real objections. These, as usual, would be exaggerated by the adverse interest of the parties. There are even dissimilar views among the states as to the general principle of discharging the public debt. Some of them either less impressed with the importance of national credit or because their citizens have little, if any, immediate interest in the question, feel an indifference if not a repugnance to the payment of domestic debt at any rate. These would be inclined to magnify the difficulties of a distribution. Others of them, a numerous body of whose citizens are creditors to the public beyond proportion of the state and the total amount of the national debt, would be strenuous for some equitable and effective provision. The procrastinations of the former would excite the resentments of the latter. The settlement of a rule would, in the meantime, be postponed by real differences of opinion and effective delays. The citizens of the states interested would clamor. Foreign powers would urge for the satisfaction of their just demands. And the peace of the states would be hazarded to the double contingency of external invasion and internal contention.
In the wide field of Western territory, therefore, we perceive an ample theatre for hostile pretensions, without any umpire or common judge to interpose between the contending parties. To reason from the past to the future, we shall have good ground to apprehend that the sword would sometimes be appealed to as the arbiter of their differences. The circumstances of the dispute between Connecticut and Pennsylvania, respecting the land at Wyoming, admonish us not to be sanguine in expecting an easy accommodation of such differences. The Articles of Confederation oblige the parties to submit the matter to the decision of a federal court. The submission was made, and the court decided in favor of Pennsylvania. But Connecticut gave strong indications of dissatisfaction with that determination, nor did she appear to be entirely resigned to it. Till by negotiation and management, something like an equivalent was found for the loss she supposed herself to have sustained. Nothing here said is intended to convey the slightest censure on the conduct of that state. She no doubt sincerely believed herself to have been injured by the decision, and states, like individuals, acquiesce with great reluctance in determinations to their disadvantage. Those who had an opportunity of seeing the inside of the transactions which attended the progress of the controversy between this state and the District of Vermont can vouch the opposition we experienced, as well from states not interested as from those which were interested in the claim, and can attest the danger to which the peace of the Confederacy might have been exposed had the state attempted to assert its rights by force. Two motives preponderated in that opposition. One, a jealousy entertained of our future power, and the other, the interest of certain individuals of influence in the neighboring states who had obtained grants of lands under the actual government of that district. Even the states which brought forward claims in contradiction to ours seemed more solicitous to dismember this state than to establish their own pretensions.
These were New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Connecticut, New Jersey, and Rhode Island. Upon all occasions, discovered a warm zeal for the independence of Vermont. In Maryland, till alarmed by the appearance of a connection between Canada and that state entered deeply into the same views. These being small states, saw with an unfriendly eye the perspective of our growing greatness. In a review of these transactions, we may trace some of the causes which would be likely to embroil the states with each other, if it should be their unpropitious destiny to become disunited. The competitions of commerce would be another fruitful source of contention. The states less favorably circumstanced would be desirous of escaping from the disadvantages of local situation, and of sharing in the advantages of their more fortunate neighbors. Each state or separate confederacy would pursue a system of commercial policy peculiar to itself. This would occasion distinctions, preferences, and exclusions, which would beget discontent. The habits of intercourse on the basis of equal privileges, to which we have been accustomed since the earliest settlement of the country, would give a keener edge to those causes of discontent than they would naturally have independent of this circumstance. We should be ready to denominate injuries. Those things which were in reality the justifiable acts of independency, so where the int is consulting a distant interest, the spirit of enterprise which characterizes the commercial part of America, has left no occasion of displaying itself unimproved. It is not at all probable that this unbridled spirit would pay much respect to those regulations of trade by which particular states might endeavor to secure exclusive benefits to their own citizens. The infractions of these regulations, on one side, the efforts to prevent and repel them, on the other, would naturally lead to outrages, and these to reprisals and wars.
The ambitious cardinal, who was prime minister to Henry Ellent, permitting his vanity to aspire to the Triple Crown, Five entertained hopes of succeeding in the acquisition of that splendid prize by the influence of the Emperor Charles V. To secure the favor and interest of this enterprising and powerful monarch, he precipitated England into a war with France, contrary to the plainest dictates of policy, and at the hazard of the safety and dependence, as well of the kingdom over which he presided by his counsels, as of Europe in general. For if there ever was a sovereign who bid fair to realize the project of universal monarchy, it was the Emperor Charles V, of whose intrigues Wolsey was at once the instrument and the dupe. The influence which the bigotry of one female, six the petulance of another, seven and the cabals of a third, eight had in the contemporary policy, ferments and pacifications of a considerable part of Europe are topics that have been too often descanted upon not to be generally known. To multiply examples of the agency of personal considerations in the production of great national events, either foreign or domestic, according to their direction, would be an unnecessary waste of time. Those who have but a superficial acquaintance with the sources from which they are to be drawn will themselves recollect a variety of instances, and those who have a tolerable knowledge of human nature will not stand in need of such lights to form their opinion, either of the reality or extent of that agency. Perhaps, however, a reference tending to illustrate the general principle may with propriety be made to a case which has lately happened among ourselves. If
Shays had not been a desultory debtor, it is much to be doubted whether Massachusetts would have been plunged into a civil war. But notwithstanding the concurring testimony of experience, in this particular, there are still to be found visionary or designing men who stand ready to advocate the paradox of perpetual peace between the states, though dismembered and alienated from each other. The genius of republics. The spirit of commerce has a tendency to soften the manners of men and to extinguish those inflammable humors which have so often kindled into wars. Commercial republics like ours will never be disposed to waste themselves in ruinous contentions with each other. They will be governed by mutual interest and will cultivate a spirit of mutual amity and concord. Concerning dangers from dissension between the states for the Independent Journal. Alexander Hamilton to the people of the state of New York. The 3 last numbers of this paper have been dedicated to an enumeration of the dangers to which we should be exposed in a state of disunion from the arms and hearts of foreign nations. I shall now proceed to delineate dangers of a different and perhaps still more alarming kind. Those which will, in all probability, flow from dissensions between the states themselves and from domestic factions and convulsions. These have been already in some instances slightly anticipated, but they deserve a more particular and more full investigation. A man must be far gone in utopian speculations who can seriously doubt that if these states should either be wholly disunited or only united in partial confederacies, the subdivisions into which they might be thrown would have frequent and violent contests with each other. To presume a want of motives for such contests as an argument against their existence would be to forget that men are ambitious, vindictive, and rapacious, to look for a continuation of harmony between a number of independent, unconnected sovereignties in the same neighborhood would be to disregard the uniform course of human events and to set at defiance the accumulated experience of ages. The causes of hostility among nations are innumerable. There are some which have a general and almost constant operation upon the collective bodies of society. Of this description are the love of power, or the desire of preeminence and dominion, the jealousy of power, or the desire of equality and safety. There are others which have a more circumscribed, though an equally operative influence within their sphere. Such are the rivalships and competitions of commerce between commercial nations, and there are others, not less numerous than either of the former, which take their origin entirely in private passion. In the attachments, enmities, interests, hopes, and fears of leading individuals in the communities of which they are members, men of this class, whether the favorites of a king or of a people,
instances abuse the confidence they possess, and assuming the pretext of some public motive, to sacrifice the national tranquility to personal advantage or personal gratification. To the people of the state of New York, in a letter of the 1st July, 770, Parliament makes some observations on the importance of the union then forming between England and Scotland, which merit our attention. I shall present the public with one or two extracts from it. An entire and perfect union will be the solid foundation of lasting peace. It will secure your religion, liberty, and property. Remove the animosities amongst yourselves and the jealousies and differences betwixt our two kingdoms. It must increase your strength, riches, and trade, and by this union the whole island being joined in affection and free from all apprehensions of different interest, will be enabled to resist all its enemies. We most earnestly recommend to you calmness and unanimity in this great and weighty affair, that the union may be brought to a happy conclusion, being the only effectual way to secure our present and future happiness and disappoint the designs of our and your enemies, who will doubtless on this occasion use their utmost endeavors to prevent or delay this union. It was remarked in the preceding paper that weakness and divisions at home would invite dangers from abroad, and that nothing would tend more to secure us from them than union, strength, and good government within ourselves. This subject is copious and cannot easily be exhausted. The history of Great Britain is the one with which we are in general the best acquainted, and it gives us many useful lessons. We may profit by their experience without paying the price which it cost them. Although it seems obvious to common sense that the people of such an island should be but one nation, yet we find that they were for ages divided into three, and that those three were almost constantly embroiled in quarrels and wars with one another. Notwithstanding their true interest with respect to the continental nations was really the same, yet by the arts and policy and practices of those nations, their mutual jealousies were perpetually kept inflamed, and for a long series of years they were far more inconvenient and troublesome than they were useful and assisting to each other. Should the people of America divide themselves into 3 or 4 nations, would not the same thing happen? Would not similar jealousies arise and be in like manner cherished? Instead of their being joined in affection and free from all apprehension of different interests, envy, and Jealousy would soon extinguish confidence and affection, and the partial interests of each confederacy, instead of the general interests of all America, would be the only objects of their policy and pursuits. Hence, like most other bordering nations, they would always be either involved in disputes and war, or live in the constant apprehension of them. To the people of the state of New York, in a letter of the 1st July, 1786, to the Scotch Parliament make some observations on the importance of the union then forming between England and Scotland, which merit our attention. I shall present the public with one or two extracts from it. An entire and perfect union will be the solid foundation of lasting peace. It will secure your religion, liberty, and property. Remove the animosities amongst yourselves and the jealousies and differences betwixt our two kingdoms. It must increase your strength, riches, and trade, and by this union the whole island, being joined in affection and free from all apprehensions of different interest, will be ennobly to resist all its enemies. We most earnestly recommend to you calmness and unanimity in this great and weighty affair, that the union may be brought to a happy conclusion, being the only effectual way to secure our present and future happiness, and disappoint the designs of our and your enemies, who will doubtless, on this occasion, use their utmost endeavors to prevent or delay this union. It was remarked in the preceding paper that weakness and divisions at home would invite dangers from abroad, and that nothing would tend more to secure us from them than union, strength, and good government within ourselves. This subject is copious and cannot easily be exhausted. The history of Great Britain is the one with which we are in general the best acquainted, and it gives us many useful lessons. We may profit by their experience without paying the price which it costs them, although it seems obvious to common sense that the people of such an island should be but one nation, yet we find that they were for ages divided into three, and that those three were almost constantly embroiled in quarrels and wars with one another. Notwithstanding their true interest with respect to the continental nations was really the same, yet by the arts and policy and practices of those nations, their mutual jealousies were perpetually kept kept inflamed, and for a long series of years they were far more inconvenient and troublesome than they were useful and assisting to each other. Should the people of America divide themselves into 3 or 4 nations, would not the same thing happen? Would not similar jealousies arise and be in like manner cherished, instead of their being joined in affection and free from all apprehension of different interests? Envy and jealousy would soon extinguish confidence and affection and the partial interests of each confederacy, instead of the general interests of all America, would be the only objects of their policy and pursuits. Hence, like most other bordering nations, they would always be either involved in disputes and war, or live in the constant apprehension of them. For the Independent Journal of the people of the state of New York, to the people of the state of New York, Queen Anne in her letter of the 1st July, 1786, to the Scotch Parliament, makes some observations on the importance of the union then forming between England and Scotland, which merit our attention. I shall present the public with 1 or 2 extracts from it. An entire and perfect union will be the solid foundation of lasting peace. It will secure your religion, liberty, and property. Remove the animosities amongst yourselves and the jealousies and differences betwixt our 2 kingdoms. It must increase your strength, riches, and trade, and by its union the whole island being joined in affection and free from all apprehensions of different interests, will be to resist all its enemies. We most earnestly recommend to you calmness and unanimity in this great and weighty affair, that the union may be brought to a happy conclusion, being the only effectual way to secure our present and future happiness, and disappoint the designs of our and your enemies, who will doubtless on this occasion use their huge best endeavors to prevent or delay this union. It was remarked in the preceding paper that weakness and divisions at home would invite dangers from abroad, and that nothing would tend more to secure us from them than union, strength, and good government within ourselves. The subject is copious and cannot easily be exhausted. The history of Great Britain is the one with which we are in general the best acquainted, and it gives us many useful lessons. We may profit by their experience without paying the price which it costs them. Although it seems obvious to common sense that the people of such an island should be but one nation, yet we find that they were courageous, divided into 3, and that those 3 were almost constantly embroiled in quarrels and wars with one another. Notwithstanding their true interest with respect to the continental nations was really the same, yet by the arts of policy and practice forces of those nations. Their mutual jealousies were perpetually kept inflamed, and for a long series of years, they were far more inconvenient and troublesome than they were useful and assisting to each other. Should the people of America divide themselves into 3 or 4 nations, would not the same thing happen? Would not similar jealousies arise and be in like manner cherished instead of their being joined in affection and free from all apprehension of different interest? Envy and jealousy would soon extinguish confidence and affection, and the partial interests of each confederacy instead of the general interests of all America would be the only objects of their policy and pursuits. Hence, like most other bordering nations, they would always be either involved in disputes and war, or live in the constant apprehension of them. For the independent journal, for the independent journal, for the independent journal, for the independent journal. To the people of the state of New York, Queen Anne in her letter of the 1st July, and on 1086 to the Scotch Parliament, makes some observations on the importance of the Union then forming between England and Scotland, which merit our attention. I shall present the public with 1 or 2 extracts from it. An entire and perfect union will be the solid foundation of lasting peace. It will secure your religion, liberty, and property, remove the animosities amongst yourselves, and the jealousies and differences betwixt our 2 kingdoms. It must increase your strength, riches, and trade, and by this union the whole island, being joined in affection and free from all apprehensions of different interests, will be able to resist all its enemies. We most earnestly recommend to you calmness and unity in this great and weighty affair, that the union may be brought to a happy conclusion, being the only effectual way to secure our present and future happiness, and disappoint the designs of our and your enemies, who will doubtless on this occasion use their humors and devils to prevent or delay this union. It was remarked in the preceding paper that weakness and divisions at home would invite dangers from abroad, and that nothing would tend more to secure us from them than union, strength, and good government within ourselves. This subject is copious and cannot easily be exhausted. The history of Great Britain is the one with which we are in general the best acquainted, and it gives us many useful lessons. We may profit by their experience without paying the price which it cost them. It seems obvious to common sense that the people of such an island should be but one nation, yet we find that they were for ages divided into 3, and that those 3 were almost constantly embroiled in quarrels and wars with one another, notwithstanding their true interest with respect to the continental nations was really the same. By the arts and policy and practices of those nations. Their mutual jealousies were perpetually kept in flame. And for a long series of years, they were far more inconvenient and troublesome than they were useful and assisting to each other. Should the people of America divide themselves into 3 or 4 nations, would not the same thing happen? Would not similar jealousies arise and be in like manner cherished instead of their being joined in affection? And free from all apprehension of different interests, envy and jealousy would soon extinguish confidence and affection, and the partial interests of each confederacy, instead of the general interests of all of America, would be the only objects of their policy and pursuit. Like most other bordering nations, they would always be either involved in disputes and war, or live in the constant apprehension of their journey.
that just screeches in this insufferable accent.
Sound like you had a bad experience, man.
Well, I just
The better experience was encountering like just any and all fucking British one. That was the bad experience.
know you're British.
Oh yeah,
Oh shit.
this had the date with
Danny, did a really good job.
Who's Biscuit?
He just taught his idealism.
Russia guy.
Not a rock. It's not a rock.
He is a rapper.
No, he's a rap. Oh, rapper. I think he's a rock.
He's black.
Yeah, he's a rap. That's not why.
I didn't see it on the debate.
It's a partial explanation at least.
So, Bob,
Danny
it
isn't
really,
Danny Photo.
yes, yeah, it wasn't really much. It wasn't really much of a debate. It was more of a discussion on what Biscuit thinks God is, and then his idealistic ideologies.
Oh, it's a
Right. I haven't seen it. I doubt it's worth watching like at all.
Nah, it's okay.
Sounds really boring.
It's somewhat entertaining, but Biscuit holds the idea
They're
that
lagging, I think.
Biscuit holds the idea that all things are fundamentally because of
James, you're roboting James.
Oh, clear.
Yeah, it's true. Other than that,
It's true. It is not.
But if I can seriously hate you, Andrea, like you will just like insist to have conversations with like just the most intransigent pieces of trash on the planet.
Especially
That's the
dishonest.
conversation you'll
Like
do.
everything that she said was misrepresenting him in the most awful way. Like it was just twisted and not genuine. Like at some point you have to realize that somebody isn't like there's people who are actually listening to know more about you and know your perspective, and there's people who are just assholes and they just want to be like, I don't know.
Exactly right. Correct. And that's the thing with Andrew. Like, he has honest people around him, and like you could try to have conversations with them, where like he learns about their views and like has them tell him something he doesn't know, or like he tells them something they don't know. But, like he doesn't give a shit to have those conversations. Like a fucking butterfly will flap its wings in Uganda and be like, "Sorry, buddy, something came up. I got to deal with this." And then like, okay, like fucking honey badger farted. Okay, I need to address this. Like, drop everything. You know, stop robbing the house. You know, the car will drive itself. I don't give a fuck. I need to deal with honey badger.
Okay, you make some
Fuck, I hate you.
excellent points, but there's also balance. Like one thing that I do like is that Andrew, like, so there's a lot of people, I won't mention any names, but they treat people like everybody's like below them, and if you don't have the same standard, like, I like that Andrew meets people where they are. Like, I like that he.
But there are definitely those kinds of people.
But let's say that they don't have the same aptitude, or they don't have the same IQ, or let's say that they don't have the same information. He'll kind of meet them where they are. I don't like when he entertains trolls, though.
Yeah.
That's what I don't like.
But I think that even those people who kind of have this, like, you know, air of superiority to them, like, even they, like, a lot of the time they are willing to meet people where they're at, as long as, like, they don't think, like, someone's being, like, really dishonest. Like, if someone genuinely asks them something, like, they will engage. So, like, you have to, like, keep that in mind as well. So what's going on with Trump? He kidnapping the Venezuelan guy. What's up with that?
Say it again.
I fucking yanked.
What's up with Trump kidnapping the president of Venezuela?
I mean, now you have precedent to
What's
go
up?
kidnap Netanyahu. You know, like if the president of is qualified to be kidnapped, then I know who is. Somebody can go and kidnap him and bring him to trial. Like, what are we doing now? Everything is just free.
It doesn't have any oil.
Yeah, exactly right.
I wonder, I feel like that operation, wouldn't work in Israel. Like, not that, Israel would, beat America in a war, but just, you couldn't actually do this kind of, go away and kidnap the president in Israel. I don't know. I mean, I guess you could arrest him when he is in the U.S.
Yeah.
There's a lot of suspicion that multiple elements within the Venezuelan military and security apparatus work with human.
I guess, but your military is kind of shit in the first place, is that?
No, it's complete garbage.
But this has happened before. It happened in 1988 or 89 with Noriega in Panama, where Noriega was charged with drug trafficking, or being connected with drug trafficking, facilitating drug trafficking, and the U.S. government went in and deposed him. But the difference between then and now is that when it was done in the 80s, they officially appointed someone as the interim head of state or whatever, and then they got that person's permission, because all of these law enforcement state law enforcement actions that end up affecting governments of other states are supposed to be cleared through the local government, right? And they always have been, except for this one time where the Trump administration decided not to appoint someone as the local representative, and B, if they had appointed someone, they should have then cleared it with that person before they took the actual initiative to do the extraction.
What's the charge on the guy, though? What are they?
Drug trafficking. I think it's drugs and guns.
What, he's involved?
Facilitating the trafficking of drugs and guns.
I see. I mean, is that even plausible or not?
No, it's a legit charge. It's coming out of the state court, New York, right? I don't think it's a political charge. It could be, but I don't think it is. I think it's legit.
Serious reason for saying that it's dead.
I think if the charge is if the conviction is correct, then I think there probably is good reason to think that he was doing it. But I haven't looked at that deep to know what what he was convicted of exactly.
Yeah. What's the charge? Eating a scriptural charge used to me. You know the video?
I do not.
Sounds big guys getting arrested by 20 officers. It's what's the charge? Eating a succulent Chinese meal.
It's fucking yanked.
Canadian.
A succulent Chinese meal. Wait, but Millet, you would agree that Sully is one of the dumbest people in Buffalo, right?
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, absolutely, Sachin.
I'm not even saying that dumb is one of them. Because he says stuff right like that. Popo the gorilla has never said anything that's stupid.
I love that they swore in his like VP, which is weird. If you're gonna claim that the government is illegitimate,
Well, the Americans were in Madrid.
yeah,
Guys.
it's fucking hilarious. It's like interim president. It's probably because she's just going to do like whatever they want. It's just funny how they're undermining their own justifications.
Right. No, it's kind of crazy that like you have like all these countries where like you can just go there and like destroy them, and, like nothing happens.
Yeah, that is funny. Just like, you know, it's crazy how little of a fight they actually put up.
Right.
A little who put up.
The Venezuelan military.
Oh my God, they want to get rid of that guy. Well, the army does. The people do.
Hearing this claim that like apparently the people wanted Mr. Ross. Like, is there any confirmation of this, or what's the?
They wanted him, or
They wanted him out of like they're
Yeah, I think-
celebrating.
I think there's been polling around this. I think in a vacuum, the people of Venezuela wanted the Maduro regime out and think that the 2019 election was fraudulent. That kept the Maduro regime in. But, you know, just because you want them out doesn't mean like you want them out this way.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the regime is still standing if his VP is in power. It's like, you know, like the VP would have been part of it. It's just like the VP took over. It's not like you fixed the corrupt elections.
no, that's kind of my point earlier as well. Whereas like installing the VP as president, it's just, I don't know, legitimizes that whole thing. I assume they're gonna have elections at some point, but it's like Trump version of it.
Right.
Yo, Sasha,
What's up?
I heard you talk to Eric. Do you know what day that was when you reported?
I don't think I talked to Eric recently, or
I thought I heard Timothy mentioning it in the Tillism room, so.
I don't think I talked with Samoa, and then I had
No.
exchange with Luca, I think is the guy's name.
No, it wasn't in that room. He said it was in the Andrew room. I just heard him mentioning the interaction in the chill.
I'll ask him about it again.
Yeah. I don't remember at all.
He said Eric started out. Oh, maybe the Roger though. Yeah, I heard that conversation with Roger.
Yeah, I was on.
I mean, I like Roger. I don't think he's a good debater, but I don't like hate him or anything. But he's like fringe in these arguments.
Like Roger is on like all these crazy TV programs that are like, you know, like only like 1 in a billion people can get in there, and he's like trained in HDSM, like drama himself, the best HDSM in history and today. Okay, and like, you know, his all these elite classes, his authors like called like interesting. And then like there's
Very
like,
powerful.
I'm like in a country where like you can't even like read like any of the philosophy texts. Like I get like scrapes of like the pages delivered by
They're written on cabbage leaves,
So-
you know.
right. So it's like, you know, like the dark horse, the runner up, the David versus Goliath, and I still went cold. I was crazy.
How does Sasha do on those? It's unreal.
It's unreal, right?
It's probably because you're like double gay compared to a single gay Sasha. You know, it's a double power.
Right, right.
You know, what were you so like why did you say I'll start again? You heard a debate with Roger. Why was it so offensive to you?
No, I wasn't offended by it.
Roger has to get it.
Are you talking to me or Sasha? I couldn't tell with that. No, it wasn't like offensive. It's just like I know Roger. I've talked to him, or not Roger, Eric. I've talked to him before. I was interested in the conversation topic that happened. You know, I'd like to hear it.
You sure you talked to Roger?
I know Roger personally. I've been to a couple of like private chats with like PhD guys before, but no, I know. I talked to Eric.
When you said personally, like IRL?
No, not personally. I don't like online. And I know I talked to Eric as well, and I was like, I respect Eric a lot, so I would be in a conversation.
Who's Eric?
He's like an online debater in like the anime philosophy community. He's like published a couple papers.
Oh,
he's
sorry,
like
you
pretty-
mean that person.
Yeah.
I think you meant the Eric from Chillism.
No, why would I care about that fucking retard boy? The
Gay
fucking
God
boy.
hates Eric from Chillism.
No, I don't. I actually don't mind it.
Well,
We're
I
on
don't
good
think,
terms.
no, I don't think I talked to Eric recently. No. I don't remember like talking to him really. But okay, that probably because he did just mean Roger, if I were to guess.
Well, he called him Ethan V2, right? So like maybe that it pegs me as a little bit more like insane.
That's probably
Like
Ariana.
obtuse if that's like if that was a fucking rod.
Sorry, honest.
Could be Matthew as well. I like talked to Matthew like very briefly, like maybe a week or two ago.
Yeah. Was it in the entry room as well or no?
Yeah. That sounds weird. Did you ever watch more of Machina Boy?
No, I will be catching up on it though. I'm interested in it again because my buddy likes it. So
Okay. So yeah,
Did you
three
read
is supposed to come out. Sure.
did you read any of the comics I sent you or no?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, bad friends.
Well, I'm sorry. I had some other stuff. Tell you about that.
Have you read or watched Thunder yet, Sasha?
I've watched Hunter x Hunter like a long time ago.
Oh yeah, I've been reading it. It's like I'm actually like it's probably one of my favorites so far. I think I might like it as much as like Vagabonds.
Where are you? Like, which story arc?
Oh, I got all the way. I might get the end. I finished the lecture. Like, I think my biggest appeal to it is like each arc has a different flavor or tonality to it. Right? It's like the kind of exam arcs, like you kind of like easygoing kind of like student exam arc, right? Then you have like the Chimera arc, which is like an alien invasion arc, and the lecture arc is like a political kind of drama. You know, I think like I think that kind of like changing tonality every arc is like really interesting to me.
Yeah, I sent you something funny on this.
No,
Wait, what show is that again?
Hunter x Hunter.
Hunter x Hunter, yeah.
I mean, like the power scaling is a lot novel because like the power levels individualized.
Different from person, yeah. My buddy.
Yeah, I think that's like a lot more.
I've like seen a bunch of episodes.
So take that in comparison to something like fucking like Naruto or DBZ, where it's like chakra pool is literally the kind of like dynamics of the fight, right?
Yeah, I really like the power system in Hunter x Hunter. I fucking hate the Chimera Naruto.
No, I think I agree. I think it like drags on too long and its pacing's all over the place, right?
Yeah.
It's like you read something like the York New City or even like the Greed Island arc, which is like the kind of like its version of Yu-Gi-Oh! It's like it's a lot tighter, I think, in its pacing. And like, you know, I don't know, you don't like cut to different types of characters that aren't really interesting as much as you do in the Chimera.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, the New York City arc, I love that so much.
That's probably my second favorite one. I think I like the election arc the most. But I like political dramas a lot, you know. Like political dramas just really interest me.
I can't stand political dramas in anime because, like, 99% of the time, what they do is just like plot twist. This person predicted everything, and they were playing the strengths. Like,
yeah. That's not the same in like political. Like a lot of bad political dramas like that too. It's like that's like essentially House of Cards. It's just that fucking plot device over and over again.
I think like for House of Cards, they can get behind it because like they set it up a lot better. Like there's a lot more like shine, like what goes into setting up, like, you know, the like final work of the plan. But like,
like the manipulation's the focus, like not the actual like knowing everything. Yeah, I've seen The Voice.
But the latest season.
I know. I've read the comic though too. I've read the whole run. So.
I think the story diverges between the show and the comic though.
Yeah, it gets fucking garbage. Like I don't even think the comic's that good, but the fucking show is even like worse.
Yeah, I agree. But like in the show, they also do this like very like down plot twist where like at the end it's like there's like this super smart character. It's like, oh, like see all this stuff that happened where like we thought we lost. Well, actually, I predicted this. That is how I wanted it to happen, and we actually went. And it's like shit.
Welcome, Agostino. How are you, sir?
Andrew, what's with your like moral degradation or degeneration to like hanging out in these garbage rooms all the time?
That's what happens when you hang out with atheists.
What's the explanation for the
best explanation is atheism and the moral corruption.
It's like even worse than that. Like what this guy does is just he like insists of having like conversation and with actual trash. Like he'll be like, Lion, I need to talk to this guy for like 5 hours and like fight with my life. Like just, you know, have that conversation happen. Oh, this fucking stupid annoying British bitch. Okay, like guys do not kick her. I need to talk to her. This is like the content I want. It's like, oh, like, like Albert Einstein, like we communicated via like the media, and like he's like gonna reveal like, you know, like biggest secrets of the universe. Like, no, bro, sorry, like I'm busy. I need to do something else. Let's go to somebody else. But
don't reveal our upcoming room, Sasha. But let me just say, I wanted to ask you their strengths, and they have a lot of them. Would it be no? Would it be Samoa, Roland, or Lion?
Samoa's the GOAT in the same way, you know, Steven Seagal is the best martial artist. It's like he has the appearance of
that was fucking brilliant.
Of being a good debater. That what makes him good. You don't need it actually to be real.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I would agree that Sully is like one of the dumbest people around it.
Yeah, I mean you can't express tone by text. Abortion is not a moral issue. No, we shouldn't put in money to investigate potential homicides or murders. We should just put the money elsewhere. Some other things that maybe some social programs like
the
or something.
Well, pussy pick spots. That's what we should put money to. That's the best allocation.
The Joy Wolf. I don't know if I want you to repeat it. Actually, never mind.
No, please say it. We didn't hear. So this for the people of the fact he spoke of.
Gaywalk, Jaywalk, you're still you aren't you haven't turned on Crimsonite, have you?
You better not.
Jaywalk, Crimsonite, come up here, brother. We need to talk about a debate.
Didn't that guy debate Sasha or something, and he like paid some money?
Yeah, I actually.
Yeah.
Hey.
That's my
He's
point.
a good guy. Yeah.
The Crimson Knight, like, he's one of my favorite people on platforms. He's like a much better debater and like smarter and better person than Sully.
Get up here, Creamy.
Give that comment later, Sasha, about Andrew. Like why are you making less room, Tony? I don't understand. What's going on there, Bubba?
Do you want the actual answer you want?
No, okay, the fake one and the real one.
Okay, the fake one is Andrew likes to hang out with and talk to stupid people. The real one is
That's probably real.
Andrew's terrified of being in a room with Timothy. And Timothy and Andrew had an insanely vitriolic falling out.
Can someone give me like the background on that, like the details?
Well, that's not exactly true, just to be clear. That's the word on the street. I'll clear that up. So I've invited Timothy multiple times on stage, and I actually messaged him and said, let's mod. And he was just mod with me and chillism. So I don't really, that's not the issue. Like, I don't think what he did was cool by any means, but you know, I like him.
What did he do? I'm in the cave right now. I'm like blind to the features being talked about. Like what Timothy?
Well, we had a little discussion. Well, he basically called me a liar when I've asked him to quit.
You are a liar.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah, Andrew is a liar.
But then he moved me down in my room, and it's just like, well, all right, we probably should chill out for a little bit. Right? But I didn't tell him that. You know, I just asked him a question: do you want to even be in the rooms? Because if he's not enjoying himself, and it's just always contentious, and it's always just like, you know, trying to attack me or berate me or whatever. Then it's not really like, what are we doing? Like I don't enjoy that. No, it's not what I want to do, right?
No, what Andrew wants to do is just like fucking speak to like stuff.
He wants to talk to lions for like 24 hours.
I want to talk to Samoa.
No, but Andrew, like I'm kind of like joking with like my presentation, but what I'm saying is serious. Like, I do fucking hate you. Like just like you do really like facilitate the worst fucking conversations like imaginable.
I know.
And those are the ones you just happen. And like it's like that. Like
It's
you
funny.
used to actually try to get like good conversations going.
It's funny, that's like basically Timothy's critique of Andrew as well.
Yeah, convergence.
Yeah.
Convergence.
Well, I mean, I don't think a lot. I mean, I've heard the critique before, and I've given responses. I mean, look, I hear you. I mean, part of it is you got to allow for some enjoyment of interaction between you and some of these folks, Sasha. But I think.
But that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the interactions you have. Right? Like, the ones that you choose to get invested in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's true. Yeah, that's true. Well, the dynamics have become rather touchy. It's a lot of work to navigate all those. You're not exactly an easy.
I don't think so. I think like you could just try to have like good conversations, like I don't know, like me or Millet or like somebody who's like there is room to have decent conversations. Like you don't give a shit to have those conversations. You're like,
Well,
I need to talk to Lion.
well, that's a separate thing, line thing. But you're saying, why don't I facilitate good ones anymore? Because obviously I can still have ones that are, at the zoo and still have good ones. And you're saying that there's been a decrease in the amount of good ones. Well, look, I mean, there's some notable exceptions. I don't want to go over that, but I'll just say that having you dialogue with certain folks or myself or whatever is great, but the dynamics are in fact touchy because there's just a lot of different stuff that's happening.
You're in the meat race.
You and just about everybody.
No, you're in the meat.
Oh yeah, I got you. We gotta wait. I gotta get out of this. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you got the Sam thing, you got the Selah thing, right, going on, but you got the you thing with just about everybody. You got the Rob thing going on with certain folks. You got the community thing going on, and there's just various classes of different folks, and there's different requests for different kinds of conversations. certain folks want different. They
My
want to see different
request you
things.
talk to an Enigma or Lion, bro.
Yeah,
No, that's me. No, that's me.
Yeah,
No,
who would play that
that's
monster?
me. That's me.
Alright, so that's all I'm talking about. I'm
I'm not
saying,
talking about
That's
like,
the thing. Why I remember Guantanamo Bay and the terrorists. It's just you talking
Well,
about
there's that. Look, I mean, if you come visit me in the zoo, don't be mad to see poop thrown around. All right. I mean, if that's what's going on, that's what's going on. We have feces fights. You've heard of food fights. That's what
Yeah,
happens.
go to live in the zoo. You have a house, Andrew. Go home.
Well, I'm telling you, brother.
please don't repeat, bro.
The influence is I mean, it's wearing off. I'm starting to see my hair get thicker. I'm starting to eat more bananas. There's a lot of things going on. So I'm just saying, if you
You're
guys
saying ask instead of ask.
I am.
Ask me a question.
Yeah, and I'm actually starting to call people N-words. Well, actually just one person because his name's N-word. And it feels natural. You know what I mean? It flows off the tongue. So I don't know.
Absolutely.
But no, I would like to get Pumpkin Unkin on. Caleb's supposed to have.
No, man, like it's just like what I'm telling you is you could have good conversations. In
Yeah.
fact, you did have some good conversations like recently, and like you really don't give a fuck to have them, and you're really insistent on having trash problems, regardless of like whatever is going on between Rob and.
Yeah. Well, it depends on what you're saying. If you're saying that I'm staging conversations like that, yeah,
No, I'm saying like you.
Oh yeah.
So it's like which conversation you have.
Yeah, if you're talking about ones particular to me, obviously I still want to talk to Lion. I've been talking to him ever since the beginning of time.
But you know, I'm saying the conversations you insist on having and like make happen where you participate are exclusively the ones where you talk to like absolute subhumans.
Oh, well, I mean, okay. I mean, I just don't agree with it that we have a different value there of what's going on. Right? I mean, I think some
Well, you rely on as a subhuman, Enigma is a subhuman, like I don't
well,
The difference in value is that he values their input for some reason, even though they are
it's not really necessarily their input. I mean, part of it is like, look, I mean, I can do a favor if dunking is comes with the territory. You know, I'm not gonna necessarily shoot that.
Have you ever dunked Lion? I feel like it's like a wrestling match where you got the bar
With
gets
Lion?
low.
With Lion?
Yeah, the bar just
I
continuously
don't
drops.
brother. So you want to know what happened? Well, anyway, I don't
No?
know.
No, I don't want to know what happened.
There was a recording, and it just didn't have any audio. So let me just tell you that's unfortunate. But yeah, no, I think he said some interesting things. I don't know if you were in the game, but he said God carries out.
But you're like impossible to talk.
What do you mean?
Yeah, no.
You're just getting distracted by the most random shit and like
No, I heard your critique. I just don't
following
think
the like most random fucking threads.
I don't think there's much more to go on that. You know.
I think he needs some Adderall, so I should mail him some.
Yeah. Give me some.
Fucking
No,
government expansion. Andrew.
No, they like
You see every black person in the
like
world.
Wait, what are we talking about? Have you shifted
but when you say there isn't anything to talk, like you just mean what, like you do just value talking to like I don't think. What do you mean?
Well, no. I mean, I've actually just been really busy, so it's really hard for me to put a lot of focus into what I'm doing. But if I'm engaging with some people, sometimes it's like some of the lower level as you view it. I'm not saying I disagree, but I don't like calling them
But it's not
trash.
that they're lower level, that they're just like
Actual trash.
shit that's on us.
Yeah. Well, I have the same time, but see, the thing is, though, Sacha, when you're engaging with somebody doing that, you take it to the nth degree, right? Whether it be Dan Barker, Abe, you do all your stuff to make it, you pursue that like a bloodhound. And I admire that. I actually think that's good. I think it's good for people to be called out for their dishonesty. So I'm somewhat, I'm somewhat of a person of your own heart. I actually think that Lion is a dishonest person. I think that Samoa is dishonest, but on a whole new level. I don't even know if he knows what he's doing anymore. And then Enigma, I mean, that was just blatant dishonesty what she just did today. And I do.
But the thing is like when Samoa, for example, like he just progressively gets more embarrassed. Like the more he like just has to like make shit up about the source material read. And it's just like, but like the people you engage and like the people here is like quotes, like there isn't that entertainment of it. And in fact, like they just fucking like noise wall. And like I actually don't against that kind of shit. Like if somebody just starts noise walling, like I'm just like, okay, like whatever.
Nah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. I think I'm a higher threshold for that kind of stuff, I guess. But whatever the case may be, I mean, I don't like the stuff that's, like, I mean, I agree with you, right? There's noise trolling or noise walls, and I think that's something that I tolerate when we do. I like that. But as far as the entertainment value stuff goes, it depends, right? I mean, if you ask Piper, and I know you're a huge fan of Piper loves those kind of conversations. Piper thinks they're great, one of Piper's favorite kind of dialogues is between me and either Sully or me and Albedo when it's hostile. And she loves it.
But that's not like both sides noise walling. I mean, that is like
that's fine. That's fine.
Like you are like yelling at each other, but there is like some point, and like I don't mean it's like with Lion, he just doesn't listen to what's said. Like I'm saying with this like stupid Enigma.
And Enigma's unbearable. I probably wouldn't be able to do too much Enigma. She's like, you're too scared to come on my stages.
He should be killed. I don't understand.
Well, like, we can't say that. So you're gonna have another. You're gonna bring another burner. You might get us in trouble. You gotta be careful.
You're gonna have another Eskimo situation.
Yeah, that's right. Another.
That's okay.
I hope you're into it.
It's not gonna be any fucking. The room is not gonna be in trouble. Like in Chilla's, they say like nigga. I'm like, come on, because that's not how. Like maybe my account is banned again. I don't think like this. Like I think like when my account is banned, it's probably just like I got reported like a million times.
Yeah. Well, I think the risk is just not really worth it. Like it's obviously mods can
You're like you don't value freedom of speech enough.
Oh, I see.
It's like just because there's like some risk, like like maybe our overlords will like step in and abuse the power. Like we need to like just not say what we think. Like, that's not
I know what's happened to me. That's true.
Trump would be disappointed.
How is Poland on freedom of speech?
I mean, it's not like America isn't like we don't have it enshrined in the Constitution or anything. There's like an idea of freedom of speech we talk about. Like, in some sense, we want to preserve freedom of speech, but like there's a lot more room to like discuss what that involves, and it is like more restricted in existing legislation in America. Like you can't deny Nazi crimes, you can't deny communist crimes, you can't do like certain things in certain contexts that would be religiously offensive. There's a bunch of shit about like, I don't know, like what you can say about like the president, and then there's like the standard shit that's like also illegal in America. The point is like it's a lot more restricted than in America, although still there is this idea that we do want to preserve the people's ability to criticize the government and discourse. But
yeah, no, I appreciate that. Can you say things like I hate these people or whatever?
you mean like about like ethnic groups or something?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean,
Can you just go out on the street with a megaphone and say, I hate this particular protected class?
probably not. Yeah, I think you can in certain contexts. So, for example, like there are like exceptions for like artistic contexts, like a bunch of this shit. But yeah, I'm pretty sure like a lot of this stuff, like inciting or like attacking the group on certain grounds, would get you in trouble. Although, like in practice, like like okay, be all treated equally. Like I think like probably you would very easily get away with like talking shit about like Muslims, because we fucking hate Muslims. But you know, not so much for like how things do that.
Oh, bitch. Well, I do have a conversation I do want to ask you about, and I don't know if Gaywalk's still there because I can't see the screen, but and I mean that as a pejorative, Gaywalk. But
Right.
so, do you is there any intuition that you have, slash or any kind of, I don't know, does anything about this shift that I hear Sully, you know, and we know how Sully reasons, but people like him,
Yeah.
right. But he says things like, well, look, theological determinism, bad. Blame clearly goes on God. Universe, you know, the universe, initial conditions, genetics, you know, some antecedent chain, not to blame because it's not an agent. So therefore, we're going to blame the agent themselves, even though they're just as determined. Do you find that to be a little bit like, I don't know. I feel like that's not a fair move, to be quite frank.
Well, I mean, they have something to appeal to, which is just like, in one case, it's a person like deciding what you're gonna do, and in the other, it's not a person. So I mean, like you could have the intuition that's relevant, and I guess like I think, okay, like if a person just comes about through like natural, non-intentional means into existence, like, I don't know, just like, you know, a person pops up due to like abiogenesis or something. It's like, okay, that person could do something wrong. Maybe it's like a little bit clearer than that, like you could do something wrong if just like somebody selects the genetic material that will create an evil person, and that like creates that. Like I don't. In one case, it feels like a bit clearer that like somebody else is to blame, maybe or something. So I mean, I can see like some basic like stuff for that intuition, but ultimately, I don't know. Like maybe it's just gonna turn out that like on reflection, they aren't really like any like different in any meaningful way.
Yeah, well, let me drop a big conceptual word here.
Like at best.
So, in the philosophy of free will, this is what I wanted to get to that one time we were going through. In the philosophy of free will, Dirk Pereboom is a leading hard incompatibilist. He argues that moral responsibility is incompatible with both determinism and indeterminism. To refute compatibilism, the view that we can be free and responsible even if our actions are determined, he famously uses the four-case manipulation argument. The goal of this argument is to show that there is no principal difference between a brainwashed or programmed person and an ordinary person in a deterministic world. Pereboom presents four scenarios involving a character named Professor Plum, who kills Mrs. White. In each case, Plum meets all the standard compatibilist criteria for free will, like he isn't coerced, he acts on his own desires, and he is, as Sully says, reasons responsive. Okay, so case one, this is fascinating. I don't know if Gaywat's here. Just check this out. I wanted to kind of work through this. So, okay, so case one, the local radio manipulation. Neuroscientists have implanted a device in Plum's brain. They can manipulate him via radio waves. Seconds before the murder, they stimulate his brain to ensure he decides to kill Mrs. White. The intuition here is that Plum is not morally responsible because he is being controlled by scientists. Now, that's going to be, I think you would agree, that's pretty intuitive, right?
I don't know. I mean, I guess in the scenario it might be that, like, what if he was gonna kill her either way, and it's sort of like over-determined by their manipulation. Like, I think you need to add that, had they not done it, he wouldn't have done it himself.
Well, okay. But see, the thing is when Sully complains about God doing that, he doesn't talk about whether it's the case that they would want to do it on their own if God didn't determine